The Cleveland Browns head to Carolina this week for joint practice and the preseason opener for your Carolina Panthers. Before that happens, let's take a look at who's trending up and who's trending down on the Panthers roster right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council. No mailbag just yet. It'll be back the first Wednesday in September heading into week 1. But in the meantime, you can at me or DM me with any of your questions over on Twitter, or simply just at me over on Blue Sky, also at Julian Council. A big week for your Carolina Panthers, as on Wednesday, tomorrow, the Cleveland Browns will be in town for joint practice ahead of the preseason opener on Friday evening at Bank of America Stadium. A great chance to get a better look at the new look defense for Carolina, and of course some of the offensive additions that were made this past offseason, and looking to see how Bryce Young is progressing heading into year 3 as Panthers starting quarterback here in 2025. Before we get there, I thought I'd take a status report and look at who's trending up, who's trending down on the roster, both offensively, defensively, and even special teams wise when looking at the Panthers. Let's go ahead and start off with the Panthers offense, taking a look at the quarterback position. Not really much to say at this point in time until we see Bryce and the offense on Wednesday, and then on Friday, where Dave Canales did say a week ago that the starters will play in the first 2 preseason games. At least we'll see what happens in the final game against Pittsburgh in a couple of weeks, but the plan is to play a series or 2, maybe even more. And I was talking to Alex Zeitlo, the Charlotte Observer, yesterday. Go check out that interview on YouTube, wherever you listen to their podcasts. And I was telling him I had seen Joe Burrow talking on the NFL Network of Tom Pelissero that he feels like it's very important for him to play in the preseason because, well, he's not had a lot of opportunities because he's been injured the last couple of seasons in Cincinnati coming into the season. But he says it's important for a quarterback, especially because you're not live during practice. You cannot simulate the in-game atmosphere. And even if you're going to have joint practice where you can get some really good work in, they can't touch you. So the way you step into the pocket, the way that you move is not going to be the same as in games. And Joe Burrow, who is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, believes that of all the positions out there, quarterback needs to play in the preseason, whereas everyone else, they can be live, they can get good reps throughout training camp and throughout the preseason, but it's way different for the quarterback. So it's good to hear that Bryce is going to be out there, especially when you go back to last year, was just in a terrible weeks 1 and weeks 2, just to be completely honest. And you all sat there and watched it and were calling for him to be benched. I didn't feel like that was the right decision to make. Clearly, I was wrong there. They put in Andy Dalton, and the rest of it as history as Bryce turned things around in the second half of the season. And now he's coming in this year as starting quarterback yet again with a renewed sense of confidence and belief in him heading into year 3. So as far as Andy and Bryce goes, not too much to say as far as whether they're up or down. Basically the same where they left off. Now, Jack Plummer, this will be the weekend where it begins as far as his evaluation and whether Carolina will waste, in my opinion, a roster spot on an emergency third quarterback who you hope never plays. So we'll see how Jack has improved from last year, where wasn't great against New England in the opener, wasn't that much better against the Jets, and then certainly took some good strides against Buffalo in that finale. We'll see where he's left off from there and how he's improved over the course of almost the last year, starting off on Friday against Cleveland. So that will be something to monitor, but a good thing that we will get to see Bryce Young, I assume Andy Dalton as well, prior to Jack Plummer and the third stringers going out there on Friday night. Running backs, I'll be very curious this week just to see how many snaps that Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle get on Wednesday, then again on Friday evening. I honestly don't really need to see Chuba at all on Friday night when it comes to a running back, especially someone that you paid. You don't want to be kind of running into the ground. And you know my philosophy of use them, abuse them, lose them. Well, they spent the money on him. So they're going to try to preserve Chuba Hubbard's body. And with the unknown as far as what's going to go on with Jonathan Brooks and what you truly have in Trevor Etienne and likely Rico Dowdle only being here for a year, it would make sense for Carolina to try to take some carries off of him, even though he's going to clearly be the primary back this upcoming season. So I'm curious what the split's going to be on Wednesday in particular, with him and Rico. I mean, both those guys have looked good so far, so they're clearly trending up, but I'm very curious to see what Rico Dowdle looks like in this offense. But in particular, I want to see Trevor Etienne. I'm expecting a heavy dose Trevor Etienne on Friday night. We'll see how many reps he gets with the ones on Wednesday and maybe even on Friday. Just see what kind of role he's able to play. This will be really the beginning also, the returner battle between him and Raheem Blackshear. Hard to say how either one of them are trending at this point in time, as they've just been fielding, not really returning punts. I guess they'll get an opportunity to do that on Wednesday. I don't know if they want to actually simulate that as a live little practice session or not. We'll see. But really Friday, that's when we get to see how that battle is going on as far as Raheem Blackshear trying to hold on to the roster. I would think Trevor Etienne would be safe no matter what, considering he was taken early there in the 4th round by Carolina, and they wouldn't, in my opinion, waive him unless he just really disappointed, which so far haven't gotten any indication that has been the case. Wide receiver, talked about these guys a ton on the mailbag on Friday, talked about them a lot yesterday with Alex. Really not too much more to add here. Adam, Xavier, Tyrell McMillan, all those guys trending up, especially T-Mac after going off to a slow start to start up training camp. Xavier, from my understanding, had a pretty nice play there on FanFest or at FanFest on Saturday night. So he's trending up. Jalen Coker, it feels like it's trending down just because of the Hunter Renfrow situation, but all 5 of those guys, in my opinion, would be safe, with some questions of who, if anyone, would get traded amongst that quartet. Now, you wouldn't want it to be any of the younger guys. I don't look at, obviously he's not going anywhere, or McMillan, and Coker would probably be a possibility, but you want to be short-sighted there. Renfrow only wants to really play in Carolina, so that's kind of messed up if that's what they decide to do. I don't get that impression that's what's going to happen, but we'll see. I mean, Adam Thielen would be the expendable one, but you did just give him more money. I don't know if another team wants to take on that contract or not. It will be something that they can obviously figure out if they decide to do trade terms, but I don't know if you want to move on from the veteran in that room, which Hunter Renfrow could be as well, but Adam's been here the last couple of years. He's built a leadership role in this locker room, and you kind of would like for him to at least see out that 3-year deal, which is the last year here coming up in 2025. So all 5 of those guys feel pretty safe. David Moore, Jimmy Horn Jr., they're special teams guys. We're going to get to see a lot of Jimmy Horn. I would love to see what he's able to do. And this is a good thing about having a guy like Andy Dalton. You can get a really good evaluation of the second team, especially receivers, because you have a veteran quarterback who has shown you that he still can play a little bit. Now, you don't want him to play a long stretch in the season as we saw last year, but he can go out there and give you some valuable reps throughout practice. Obviously, he's been valuable for Bryce as far as he's been able to grow and understand what it means to be a franchise quarterback potentially in the NFL, how you conduct yourself within the locker room, within the organization, team building. But yeah, we'll get to see a lot of Jimmy Horn as far as just a returner, but also getting to see him in the offense and how he'll be utilized possibly in years to come here in Carolina. So I think he's trending up. David Moore, whether he makes an initial roster or not, he'll be around. So there's nothing really to say much there. Just want to see what the roles are going to be and see who's able to make some plays when Cleveland's out there on Wednesday, then under the Friday night lights there in Bank of America Stadium this upcoming weekend. Tight end, still waiting on Tommy Trimble to get healthy. So seems like it's trending up, but right now it's a lot of just running routes before practice and during warm-ups and working out afterwards, and have not seen him be ready just yet, but in due time, looking like Tommy probably will be ready to go by week 1, which is a good thing. Maybe he's able to go at some point in time here, maybe next week with Houston, with that joint practice and preseason game next Saturday, or maybe the week afterwards against Pittsburgh in a preseason finale. We will see how that all goes. But in the meantime, Ja'Tavion Sanders is having a great camp. He's got his body right. He has a chef who he apparently met at FedEx, which wild how that happened. But he's looking really good, and he's on track to make some plays this week. And I'm very interested to see how he goes up against the Browns defense, which is a pretty salty bunch. Good opportunities for Mitchell Evans head as well. He's been trending up, and I will be intently watching to see among the third tight end. That's Bryce Pierre, the undrafted free agent out of UCLA, and then James Mitchell, the veteran from Virginia Tech, who spent his early part of his career with the Lions. I will be curious to see how many first-team reps those guys get. I have seen Bryce Pierre rotate in a decent amount with the first team. I've just wondered how much to really take out of that. We'll see on Wednesday. Then, of course, we'll see on Friday night how those guys are able to perform and when they're called upon. Then looking at the offensive line room, everyone pretty much trending up, except for Chandler Zavala, who is dealing with a knee injury. It's his patellar tendon. It's a week-to-week deal. Dave Canales told us about last week. So we'll see when Chandler is able to really be full go for them. And in the interim, that's a big opportunity for Ja'Tyre Carter and for Jarrett Kingston, who was on the roster last year for a couple of weeks on the 53-man. And I thought that Kingston had a good chance maybe to make the team if they want to keep 10 offensive linemen, or if they only keep 9, if that means trading away the loser of the Austin Corbett, Cade Mays center competition. But those guys now have a good opportunity with the second team, protecting Andy Dalton, to show what they have and whether they can potentially be there on the active 53-man roster if Zavala is not ready to go week 1. I don't think Chandler's going anywhere as far as being cut, but that's going to open up the door for Carter and for Kingston to be around come week 1, potentially here in Carolina. So overall, offensively, I think for the most part, everything's trending up. There's really positive vibes about that unit as they get prepared to face off against what should be one of the best defenses in the NFL coming up in 2025 when they practice with the Browns on Wednesday and then face off against maybe again against the ones on Friday night here in Uptown Charlotte. How about the defense? That was the area that needed to be addressed the most this offseason. We'll take a look at where things stand with those position groups here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On NFL are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Back here on Locked On Panthers, giving a status report of the roster as Panthers welcome the Cleveland Browns on Wednesday for joint practice. Then later on Friday evening for the Week 1 preseason game here at Bank of America Stadium in Uptown Charlotte. Taking a look at the defense, we knew going into the offseason they had to do a considerable amount to upgrade the overall talent and experience on the defensive side of the ball after last year's just shambolic performance throughout the season. It's funny having Alex on yesterday saying how when DJ Wonnum came in, it helped transform the defense. And I had to correct him. No, they have still given up 6 straight 200-yard rushing performances on the ground, which is an embarrassment and should never happen for a Carolina Panthers defense. But that's last year. This is this year, and we're focusing in on the positives and what this defense potentially could be this upcoming season, which I think will be better. Just the question is, how much better, and what will that mean for the team overall if they make the requisite improvements on the field, not just on paper, and what they could be able to do potentially in the NFC South and maybe NFC as a whole. Defensive line, I am still like kind of figuring out what the number will be as far as many guys they keep. Like 6 feels like where they're going to be at right now. We'll get a good look as far as like the top 4 this week with Derek Brown, Ashawn Robinson, Bobby Brown III, and Turk Wharton. They're going to be playing against a terrible offense. And I'm hoping to talk to Spencer German of Locked On Browns, get his perspective on the quarterback situation, the offense overall, and of course defensively what the Browns have for Carolina on Wednesday and then on Friday evening. But I don't look at that offense as being anything to be threatened by. So can this team at least the upfront unit, the interior, which I think has to have the kind of impact we saw last year when Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis was added in order for this team to take the kind of necessary step that I think a lot of you obviously want to see them take here in 2025. It's going to start with Derrick Brown being back, and he's kind of an offseason addition, even if he was under contract as one of the higher paid defensive tackles in the league. But Bobby Brown's now in, Turk Wharton's now in, Etienne Robinson thought he was the best guy by default, but still solid player. Get to see those four. I think all of them are trending up this year. Still waiting to see if someone's going to push Shai Tuttle off the roster. He took a pay cut back in the spring to remain in Carolina. I see value in having Shai Tuttle as a backup. It's just one of those things. Do they want to guarantee whatever money remains there, or they want to give a younger guy like Cam Jackson, who we have not seen a ton of so far throughout camp, making an impact, the fifth rounder from Florida? Does he get more of an opportunity? There's been opportunities I've seen for Jared Harrison Hunt, the undrafted free agent out of SMU, who got a nice UDFA deal. Will he get more opportunities? Jaden Crumedy, haven't seen a ton from him. Like those three guys, that's kind of who I have my eyes on once we really get to Friday, because I think we'll see the starters for a little bit. I'll be curious if we see Derrick Brown at all. But the four top guys, both the Browns, Robinson, and Wharton, trending up. Tuttle, kind of, not really trending down necessarily, but Jackson, Harrison Hunt, Crumedy, we'll see where they'll be trending after this week, as it doesn't seem like there's any of them really trending up at this point in time. I would think Jackson probably at this point in time would be safe, but gonna have to earn your roster spot with some other guys out there who are going to be vying for that spot. Edge rusher Nick Scorton, been dealing with a hamstring injury. Alex is really good about what he has seen from him, because I'll be honest, like the sight lines haven't been great, and maybe I've not been paying attention enough about his ability to set the edges. That's what he was drafted to do, aside from just rushing the passer. And that's one of the things that defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero really focuses on when he gets edge rushers, that he wants those guys not necessarily for their pass rushing ability, but their ability to keep everything inside, be able to set the edge and stop the run, which, as we know, Carolina struggled to do last year. When you look at the guys on the roster, Patrick Jones II, coming over from Minnesota, that's really what he's known to do. DJ Wonnum, not so much. Uman Mielen, not really. So that's really where Nick Scorton can have an impact on this roster until he really becomes what I think will be a solid pass rusher for Carolina. DJ Johnson, he was having a pretty solid camp, and that comes out of the mouth of Dave Canales. And apparently he also was on SiriusXM speaking praises of DJ Johnson, and we know Dave is a very positive guy. Not going to really say a ton of negative things, but he has been honest as far as Tedero McMillan, his early struggles. He did mention that he had those, but he had bounced back, which we've seen over the last couple of practices. DJ Johnson, though, has missed the last two of a hip injury, and he's a guy who can ill afford to have any sort of injury hold him back at this point in time. He was getting first team reps last week when Patrick Jones was dealing with an upper respiratory illness. So that just kind of shows you at least where Ejiro Evero sees him on the hierarchy and on the depth chart at this point in time. Now, when he comes back in there, if it's this week, we'll see how he fits in. But I was thinking last week that, okay, looks like he's trending to be on the roster. Now with the injuries, kind of feels like he's trending down a little bit. We'll see if he can turn that around. I know a lot of you not really DJ Johnson fans, totally understand that. He's never going to be the kind of pass rusher you want him to be. But I think for at least this season, possibly next, as long as Jero's the DC, which could not be next year depending on how things play out, that's going to be a guy who's going to have value, at least to him, in terms of stopping the run. And I think there's value there for the roster overall, as, again, they were terrible at that last year, giving up 3,000 plus yards on the ground. So I would think right now probably 5, but I could seriously see 4 edge rushers if Johnson's not able to bounce back. And just looking at the rest of them, I guess Thomas Incoon's another guy who could be interesting, as he has been a solid special teamer for Carolina. So he would be trending up while DJ Johnson would be trending down at this point in time. Linebacker, Trevor Wallace, Christian Roseboom, going to be a good opportunity to see how those guys collaborate against Cleveland on Wednesday, then a little bit on Friday as well. But the real signing that everyone is looking at is the signing of Krys Barnes from over the weekend, former Packer and Cardinals linebacker, 27 years old. He started 24 games, 3 years with the Packers from 2020 to 2022, then spent the last 2 years with the Cardinals with 6 starts in 2023. So he has experience, and that's what they needed after Josey Jewell was surprisingly, to all of us, waived after dealing with a concussion that has still plagued him all the way here early in July or late in July. And I'm sure probably something he's dealing with now or in early August. So wishing him the best as far as his health goes. But once they lost Josie, this became a really concerning unit for me. And I did my position group rankings and completely forgot about linebacker, which told you how I felt about the linebackers since I left them off of it. But I had them last, and still right now, got them there. Maybe this pushes them ahead of edge rusher, but just the linebacker room overall, whether it's the inside or the outside, is a big concern for me heading into the year for Carolina. If the defensive line's better, that will help, obviously. But the inside linebackers, we'll see. They needed some protection. Had Trevor Wallace gone down or Christian Roseboom gone down, of course, knock on wood, you don't want to see that happen. I didn't have a lot of faith in Clyde Sherrill stepping up and being your third linebacker, which is what he had to be once you saw Josie Jewell. And he was the fourth guy last year. Once Josie Jewell and Shaq Thompson missed some time, you were there in Chicago, and it was Trevor Wallace, it was Clyde Sherrill, and it wasn't necessarily the best thing for Carolina, even though Wallace did have a pretty good day that day. His counterpart not necessarily was up to the task that afternoon in Chi-Town. So, yeah, Sherrillis, John Radigan, I mean, both of those guys are trending up as far as just being special teamers, and that's where they need to be on this roster. That's the role they need to play, and getting Barnes in is a good thing for the Panthers, and I would think that they are probably set at linebacker with 5 of those guys, I would think, right now. In the corner, that one's also pretty simple at JC, Mike Jack, Chau Smith-Wade, all having really good camps. They've been monitoring JC a little bit more than I've seen in the past, which I think is a good thing. You pay him that kind of money. You want to make sure he's a guy who can stay healthy for another full season. Yeah, he missed 2 games, but 15 games of Jaycee Horn. You take that over the 3 or the 7 that you've gotten in the past here in Carolina. So he's looked good. Mike Jack was dealing with something, but he appears to be back. So he's been good. Chau Smith-Wade has really been impressive. I think he's going to be great for them in the slot and like 1v1s. Don't really get too caught up in that when I talk about how he's lost some reps, because when he's been in team defense, which is what they play, he's actually been really nice. So those 3 all trending up. Corey Thornton, he's trending up as well. The UDFA out of Louisville, who has earned his opportunity. JC said it. Dave Canales has said it. And he is the third guy when you look at just the outside corners. Him and Shamar Bartholomew have both been impressive behind Mike Jack and JC. So all the calls to get another corner in there, a veteran, doesn't appear to be something that Carolina's going to be doing just based off of how Thornton and Bartholomew have impressed, which means that Caleb Evans, he's on the outside looking in. So he's certainly trending down and trending to not be on the roster at this point in time. If things ended today, which they don't, we still got a couple of weeks until that happens with the roster cut down. It will be JC, Mike Jack, Chau Smith-Wade, Corey Thornton, and Shamar Bartholomew as your 5 corners. Looking at safety, another room that we wondered, would they add there? Haven't done so at this point in time. If there's going to be a week that they make a decision as far as we need to bring somebody else in, it would be after this week, with Wednesdays joint practice, Fridays, preseason game. If they look at what they have as far as with Lathan Ransom and Devontae Richardson and then Nick Scott, those 3 behind Trevon Merrick, and they feel like they need to get another vet in the room, then this would be the week that decides whether they decide to go ahead and do it. Now, they could wait until the end of August, much like they did in the years past with Troy Pride, and also with the guy like Mike Jackson, who they traded for. But we will see. Nick Scott's gotten to play a lot of first-team reps. I do not truly anticipate him being someone who's going to be in that rotation. So does Lathan Ransom step up? Devontae Richardson, not worried about his spot at all. He will be playing starter reps alongside Trevon Merrick this season. I just still feel like they could use another experienced body who's not Nick Scott. Like I don't know if they're taking the step forward they need to if Nick Scott's still on this roster, if that makes sense. So for right now, I still feel like there's got to be another body out there. And maybe they get to 5. We will see how that all plays out as far as the defense goes and looking ahead this week with Cleveland coming to town. Special teams, big kicker competition still going on. Talk more about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I've been using Monarch Money for the past few months. It has been a game changer for me as I've managed my money throughout my summer of travels. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Last but not least, let's talk about special teams and where they're trending at this point in time. Obviously, J.J. Jansen always trending up as he's here once again for another season in Carolina as the team's long snapper and also maybe like fifth string quarterback, if you want to call him that. So yeah, trending up there. Punting wise, Sam Martin trending up because he is back. Last week was the first time he was out there punting. We'll get to see him punt in a real live game situation, I would assume on Friday. I don't think they're going to be scoring on every single drive. If last year's any indication as far as things go with the backups, now it will be good to see Andy Dalton get an opportunity. Now, we didn't see Andy last year. He was dealing with, I believe, it was either a calf or a hamstring that kept him out for a couple of weeks last year during the preseason, which meant a lot of Jack Plummer, which wasn't necessarily great for what the team was trying to get accomplished with some of the twos because they didn't get a great evaluation of some of those guys. Now, the offensive line didn't help. I do think the offensive line this year will be far more helpful because that's going to include guys like Brady Christensen. Now we do have Josh Nijman there as well, so that's two guys who can book in at tackle. With the second team, it's going to be either Cade Mays or Austin Corbett with the twos, and then you're filling in the gaps there with likely Jarrett Kingston and Jatir Carter as you're going to have Chandler Zavala sitting out. So that was going to be a pretty solid second team offensive line anyways. So should be able to get a lot done on Friday with the second team, Andy Dalton running the show. If that is the plan for Andy to run the show, or maybe they have Jack Plummer. We'll see. I would guess that Andy's going to get plenty of opportunity. Then with the threes playing probably the entirety of the second half. But we'll get to see Sam Martin, I'm sure, at some point in time on Friday and get an understanding of whether he is a upgrade or not over Johnny Hecker. As far as the kick controversy goes, the field goal kicker competition between Ryan Fitzgerald and Matthew Wright. Talked about this yesterday with Alex Zeitlo, the Charlotte Observer. Fitzgerald apparently missed 2 field goals during FanFest. He was 4 for 4 on extra points and then 1 for 3 on field goals, missed 2 from 48 yards. One of them was a doink off the post. And by my tally, from when I've been out there, he would not have been on a skinny post since the last time I went to practice, which was last Wednesday. They were off Thursday, then they practiced on Friday when Matthew Wright was back up, and he kicked on Saturday. So Fitzgerald's 9 for 15 on the skinny post, and then, of course, was 4 for 4 extra points, 1 for 3 on the actual uprights inside the stadium on Saturday evening. Matthew Wright, by my count, and from what Alex told me yesterday, he's now 14 of 20 on a skinny post, and from what I had seen from both those guys on the skinny post, they would not have missed. Now, Alex did bring up that they talked to J.J. Jansen on their podcast, Processing Blue, cheeky little name there, that making field goals is not the only thing that matters. It's also how you lead the locker room there, especially as far as special teams goes, how you get on with the other specialists, that being Sam Martin, who's going to be the holder and the punter, of course, and then J.J. Jansen and an overall unit. So obviously, making kicks is going to probably be the most paramount thing to do. We'll see how that plays out, as Dave did tell us, I believe about a week or so ago, that the plan is to let this go into games. Well, games are here. At least a game is here on Friday, and we'll see how Ryan and Matthew perform and how the split is there for both of those guys on Friday evening. And I think good chance for the offense, the first team, to get some points up on the board. I don't know what Cleveland's plan is. I don't know what Kevin Stefanski wants to do. If he does not have his first team defense, then yeah, offense should be scoring, and that should give them an opportunity to see at least an extra point, maybe a field goal. Second team, same case. Third team, who the hell knows what you're going to get from them in the second half of Friday here in Uptown Charlotte. So that's status report on the offense, on the defense, and on special teams, as Panthers again welcome the Browns to town for joint practice on Wednesday, then the preseason opener inside Bank of America Stadium on Friday night here in the Queen City. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where I'm going to be answering your questions. Even if we don't have a mailbag right now, go ahead and DM me, at me, get those questions in. Whatever you want to ask throughout preseason, throughout training camp, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. On tomorrow's show, we'll preview what's to come on Wednesday as the Panthers and the Browns have joint practice here in Charlotte.